All right, good morning and welcome back to the Now Morning Show, ladies and gentlemen. 23 minutes after 6 o'clock this morning, I'm chatting with the Deputy Political Leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Mr. Farley Augustine. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, Ocas. Good morning to you, Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, so we're talking this morning about the failure of getting the Constitution Amendment Bill for Tobago and the Tobago Self-Government Bill passed in the lower house. Um, Before we get into that part of it, you've been saying that you want that this bill is not good enough. It's not enough of what you want. So that's what you said last time we spoke. And you've been heard saying that you wanted a quasi-federal state. What does that mean? Break that down for me.
Sure. And it's not just about what I want, but it's about what the people I represent want,
Right.
what Tobagonians want. And you may notice that the government has somewhat backpedaled now. And they're now saying, look, we will give 2 more weeks so we could probably get some amendments through. When the initial position was, look, we're going with this because this is what we want, and that's final. And when I talk about a quasi-federal, or some people pronounce that quasi-federal system, you're talking about a system that resembles federalism, but that isn't full-fledged federalism. We are looking at examples that we see from jurisdictions like United Kingdom, and I don't know if many of you know across Trinidad and Tobago that within the United Kingdom they do not have a federal system, but they have something that they call devolution of powers. It's the same thing. It's about taking power from the center and dispersing it out to outlying regions that may have different cultures, different history, and ensuring that we have autonomous regions that are part of the one united territory. So it's called the United Kingdom. But within the United Kingdom, you have Scotland that
Mm-hmm.
has its own system, Wales that has its own system, Northern Ireland, Isle of Man. But together, all the territories become United Kingdom. And while London and uh, Great Britain itself does not have a separate autonomous body,
Mm-hmm.
in Scotland, in Wales, in Northern Ireland, in Isle of Man, these territories have autonomous legislators that can pass laws specific to their areas, that can collect taxes specific to their areas, that has very broad powers with regards to lawmaking in general,
Right.
specific to their areas. And they always come together at Westminster Palace for the United Kingdom. Um, but in those outlying regions, separate and apart from the main island of Britain, they have their own powers and lawmaking abilities. And it's that kind of model that we envision. It's not strange in the world of politics. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that the world has not seen before, and that it's new, and that, oh gosh, if we give Tobago this, it means that Tobago going to become independent. Oh gosh, no, 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 that's too much powers to give. No, there's nothing novel about this at all. It exists within the Commonwealth. When I
Right.
say Commonwealth, we're talking about territories that are English speaking and territories that were once colonies of Great Britain. And it also exists outside of the Commonwealth. So
Right.
it's
So then,
very normal.
right. So these examples are great and fantastic, but I want to get back into specifically Tobago, right? Now,
Sure.
you mentioned just now that the public has 2 weeks. They extended to send in proposals and suggestions to be able to adjust the bill or recommendations to adjust the bill. What does the PDP want adjusted in this bill in particular?
Well, actually, there are several areas that we would like some adjustments
Mm-hmm.
to. And before I give you some specific areas, I want you to know that we have sent out back to the people we represent, and we say, look, this is a final chance. This is something we have been asking for. In fact, the last time I was there, I think you may have heard me say that, I had written to all the other political leaders from the other parties saying, look, let's come together and
Mm-hmm.
write with one clear, cogent voice to the parliament and say, make these fixes. And among some of the things that we need some movement on is the issue of lawmaking abilities within the maritime waters of Tobago. at the moment, the present bill suggests that we only have administrative privileges over 11 miles. But it's important to understand, with only administrative privileges, the new THA, so to speak, will not be able to make laws for Boko Reef, for example, because all you will have is administrative privileges. The new THA will not be able to make laws surrounding critical environmental issues and surrounding critical issues when it comes to our ocean and our waters. So that's one of the areas we need to look at. Another area we want to look at is the issue of land and land management. We have been arguing that the new Tobago Island government should be given full autonomy over town and country planning, as opposed to giving us, there is some measures for dealing with land in Tobago, but it's nearly not as far reaching as what Tobagonians have been saying that they want. We also look at the issue of sharing of royalties as another issue. We also look at the
sharing of royalties. What royalties?
Royalties. Well, that has to do with the exploration jointly or separately of resources within Tobago waters. And Tobago is not saying by any stretch of the imagination that once there are explorations with regards to Tobago's resources, that all the profits from that must come to Tobago. I think what Tobagonians believe and what Tobagonians want is that we have some sort of a royalty sharing mechanism, quite like what exists between Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom at the moment. Again, not uncommon in the world of devolution of powers. And so what I also hope to do in the next coming weeks is to corral quite a number of people who have been critical of the bills. In fact, all our names were on the register for cussing from the Prime Minister in his presentation. So besides Farley, Augustine, and Mr. Watson Duke, you would have heard him, the Prime Minister berate Mr. Hochoy Charles, Deborah Moore McGinnis, Stanley Beard, Dr. Vanos James, Dr. Winford James. He went into the gutter about Delmon Baker. And I'm saying all of these people, all of these Tobagonians who have different opinions, and not necessarily different opinions, but who felt like the bills before Parliament were not good as they were, I hope over the next 2 weeks to be able to corral all of them and saying, look, let's not give up on the process just yet. Let us call the government bluff. The government is saying, look, they're willing to accept amendments. Let's provide them with amendments and let's see what they are willing to do. Because the truth is, governance has to be about the art of negotiation. It has to be about a give and take. It has to be about how do I manage the expectations of people? How do I listen to people and factor that into the final outcomes? It cannot be a dogmatic approach at all.
Right. I agree with you 100%, right? So, but my question then is, a part of the approach is we've had the Joint Select Committee, we've had the consultations, right? And it's not like they were brand new, it's not like they were happening, surprise, like a consultation. These things were planned in advance. You were even invited and you showed up to one of them and you didn't really make much of a contribution.
Actually, I showed up to more than one of them.
Okay. And, but what was the, you haven't been noted for making much contribution in those particular
well, actually, that is not true. The last of those joint select committees,
right, that's the one that we know you made a
my contribution was minimal then, because we had a meeting at 3 p.m. on a Friday and we received the final bills at 8:06 p.m. the night before, and I made it clear that you cannot send me the final bills the night before, less than 24 hours before, and expect for me full responses after not having the opportunity to liaise with the people I represent. Right. But in the previous Joint Select Committee meetings that I participated in, my representation was full. In fact, I had public back and forth and debates with the AG, with the chair of the Joint Select Committee. I also submitted on behalf of my party written responses.
Right. So the
total 107 pages. So
but the the PDP and the other parties, you mentioned the corralling before, right? And you guys signed a document with 6 issues that were outstanding in the bill that you didn't see in the bill that you wanted adjusted initially, right? Six issues were the main thing. So then, in that case, why didn't you guys just support the bill and then get the amendments when it goes to the Senate?
And that would be a dangerous approach, because supporting the bill in the lower house just as they were doesn't guarantee that the amendments going to get through the Senate. And the argument that we have been making all along has been, look, fix the bills before you go to Parliament. In fact, that is what I said to them at the last time we met with the Joint Select Committee. Fix the bills before you take them to Parliament in the first place. And if that was done, there wouldn't be a need for the government to now backpedal and to now say, look, we will accept some amendments. And I could tell you, after the government's very dogmatic approach, I decided, look, Farley, know your place clearly. They don't want your opinion. Step back and leave Rowley and them with the story, right?
Right. What did you think, Mr. Augustine? What did you think of the UNC's contribution towards the bill?
I think the UNC's contributions towards the bill could have been more solid than they were. I think so. And I'm on public record as saying that I think one of my regrets is that perhaps I just completely divorced myself from the national parliament, and maybe I should have reached out to them in a significant way and help them prepare for the presentations and prepare for the debates. But from where I sat and I stood and I looked at the situation, we were saying to you from Tobago, look, there are issues with the bill. Don't go with them as they are. You did not listen. Decide to go with them as they are because it's either your way or the highway. And therefore, my approach was, okay, your way or the highway. Let's leave it up to you, the UNC, and God, and see where it works. And the truth is, I am not even faulting the UNC on it. If you listen to the debates from the opening speaker, Mrs. Robinson Wages, that presented the bills, you will realize that from the opening line, it was a very antagonistic approach towards your position. Now, I will think, if I have a piece of bill that I want the opposition to support, my initial offering to them in the parliament cannot be antagonistic. It has to be, how do I work with these people, boy? How do I coax them and get them across on my side? And I will recommend to Trinbagonians, go and look at A.N.R. Robinson's 1977 presentation in the House. He was in minority. The DSC, the party that he led, had only 2 seats in the entire parliament of 36. 2 seats. And if you look at his presentation, you did not see him come to the parliament and cuss out PNM and cuss out ULF for the other party. No. That wasn't his approach. His approach was come to the parliament, lay down all the historical facts, lay down the issues he have, and try to find a way to coalesce the entire parliament around the bill. And because of his approach, and although he was in the definite minority in the House, he was able to get the majority PNM party to agree. Look, we will have a committee of parliament, which was led by Simongal, and eventually the PNM rejected the Simongal draft because they found that was given to Tobago a lot too much. But something happened that gave the rise to the formation of the first THA in 1980. Again, governance is not about saying, look, I have the majority, I could do what I want, I will come and cuss everybody out. It's about, how do I appeal to those on the other side?
Now, it's lovely that you brought up Mr. Robinson, right? Because there's also how did he get everything that he wanted in that first request? Or did he accept less than he would have wanted and said, all right, we'll move on from there?
And that is why we are now in 2021, and we are still fighting for some of the same things Robinson fought for. from when he first presented to the House in 1977.
Right,
And
but
I think
we have seen some of the things in place, not so,
we have seen a few of the
and
things.
we have seen a bit more added in this amendment.
Yes, and I'm saying clearly, there is no reason for Trinidad and Tobago to take so long with this. What are we saying? Are we saying that we're going to give some things now and okay, Tobago, go ahead and fight some more for the next 20 years and then we'll get something else? There is no need for that. The reason why there exist examples around the world where this thing works is so that smart people should smartly look at the experiences of others and glean from that. Smart people don't say, look, we are going to create our own experiences and make our own mistakes, and we are going to, just as Scotland spent a long time to get this, Tobago, you spend a long time getting this too. That makes no sense. There exist successful examples around the world. For heaven's sake, let's just do it right and do it once. I don't want 20 years from now that I am now replacing Hochoy Charles as one of those very old politicians on the island of Tobago coming to Trinidad to argue for greater autonomy. I don't want to have to do that 20 years from now. I want us as a country to settle this here and now. And what I want people to understand is that what we are trying to grapple with is really a historical injustice and something that we inherited from colonialism. So look at the history. Tobago was once a fairly independent, very autonomous. In fact, the THA is an older legislature than the National Parliament. Tobago had an older legislature than the National Parliament. And while in Trinidad, you had a sort of colonial arrangement where everything was done through the Governor General and so on. Tobago had a very autonomous legislature. Tobago had its own money and constitution and so on. And then, oops, the British came and said, look, your economy failing, we're going to just take you and put you with Trinidad. And Tobagonians protest and say, no, we want to remain on our own, and they still place us with Trinidad.
Yeah, but you said it that if the economy was failing, then it wasn't doing a very good job of managing itself, not so?
I wouldn't say that. There are many countries in the world who are independent and have economies that have failed and bounced back from failed economies, including the great United States of America.
Yeah, but we can't compare those. We can't compare the land masses and the possibility to generate income. But tell me something. We don't have much time left, Mr. Augustine. What happens if the bill isn't passed when it goes back to Parliament for debate?
Well, it's clear if the bill isn't passed, then the bill will lapse as it is, and then we have another false start, quite like we had in 2013.
Right. And then would you be satisfied? Would you be satisfied with Tobagonians would be comfortable missing the opportunity to have more autonomy than they currently have?
And what is being offered isn't really given that much more autonomy. What is being offered in a very smart and sly way seeks to entrench a neo-colonial position and a neo-colonial relationship. And I'm saying we have an opportunity as a country to fix an historical injustice and to fix a legacy of colonialism. Is something that we just inherited, and we just have to grapple with it and make it work. I am one of those who believe that Trinidad and Tobago is stronger together. I'm one of those who believe that Trinidad and Tobago will benefit a lot more should Tobago get the kind of autonomy it seeks. You may not know it, but Scotland contributes more to the national economy of the United Kingdom as an autonomous region within the UK than any other part of the United Kingdom. And I want to assure you, for example, that if Tobago is given, and I see the smile, if Tobago is given the opportunity to be as autonomous as is requesting now, we could even fix, for example, that forex issue that we have. You know, that could be fixed if Tobago had the opportunity to run with its tourism product the way it really wants to run with its tourism product and be able to manage air and sea transportation on the island the way it wants to. If Tobago had that opportunity, then we could, through tourism, provide for this entire country what we can't now. And it's not about seeing it as some selfish goal, but actually research and the example and the history of governance around the world will show that this kind of devolution of powers usually lead to a stronger economy for the entire nation. And that is what we want. And that is how it must be seen.
All right, no problem. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Farley Augustine, Deputy Leader of the PDP. And this morning he's saying that Tobago wants more autonomy, and we still have 2 weeks to be able to send in proposals and suggestions to be able to amend the bill, and we'll see how it goes from there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you.
Take care. We take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.